in a traditional engine, though, it's not just gases. I mean, it's also liquid droplets of the fuel. So, I mean, you know, the phase change is part of the explosion, you know, the decompression of it. I mean, are you sticking with one phase with a whole gaseous phase, or by definition, things have to go into a liquid phase, you know, in the compression cycle, and then in the expansion, again, you're getting a phase change as well.
Well, in a regular car engine, the fuel, as you noted, is introduced as a fine mist, typically like a fuel injection, but you're not really getting the energy from that phase change. You're getting the energy from the combustion of the fuel. So when it turns from gasoline into carbon dioxide and steam, a lot of heat is released. And really what that heat does is it heats up the air that comes into the engine. So the internal combustion engine is just a way of intimately contacting hot fuel exhaust with incoming air, so that...
Yeah, I thought you would lose a little bit of heat because the heat of vaporization, I thought, was endothermic. I would think by having even small droplets, some of the energy, some of the heat would have to go into vaporizing the liquid component of the fuel. Or is that not right?
No, you're exactly correct. So in the case of a regular car engine, sometimes that cooling effect from the vaporization of the fuel is considered positive because the density of the air is better when it's cold and in higher density when the air is cold. So you can cram more air into the engine and get more power out of it. So that's, you know, kind of a good factor from the phase change is in a conventional engine, you get more power because you can cram more air in the engine. But it's relatively small effect. If you look at the heat involved with phase change versus the heat involved with combustion, you know, there's many orders of magnitude difference. So the phase change is a relatively modest impact on the efficiency of an engine.
So are you trying to make the compression and expansion, the compression and expansion chamber as adiabatic as possible, maintain every scrap of heat? And then on the heat exchange part, you know, on the exhaust, now you want to make the heat exchange as high as possible, I guess, right?
Yes. So this interesting, so you're really probing thermodynamics. The actual best engine that's Carnot efficient, there's three engines that are Carnot efficient, the Carnot engine, the Stirling engine, and the Ericsson engine. The Ericsson engine, all three of those actually have isothermal compression and expansion. What you want to do is during the compression, keep the gas as cool as possible because it takes less work to compress a cool gas. And during the expansion, you want the gas to be as hot as possible because a hot gas produces more work. So it's actually the opposite of what you suggested is what you want to do in a perfect engine is have an isothermal that is a cool compression and a hot expansion. So now the problem is that in any sort of reasonable sized engine, there's not enough time in the compression and the expansion to keep them isothermal. So we kind of cheat, if you will, by spraying atomized liquid water into the compressor. And so that phase change of water going from liquid water to steam or vapor in the compressor keeps it cool, and it simulates an Ericsson cycle. So that actually is one of the tricks to improving the efficiency. So it's not so much the vaporization of the fuel, which you were talking about before, it's evaporation of water that keeps the compression cool. And that has a fairly big impact on improving the overall efficiency of the engine.
You're taking the heat out of the engine during the compression cycle with the water and just with the external material that's surrounding the compression chamber, and then you're adding it back after the expansion phase or during the expansion phase. Is the heat hot enough, or the heat that comes off enough to improve the efficiency of the expansion phase?
Yes. So after the combustion of the fuel, the gas is really, really hot. And what we simply do is extract as much energy out of that as we can in the form of work so that the gas coming out of the expander is not so hot that it damages the heat exchanger. So there's, in theory, you could do what's called interwarming between the expansion stages. You just do a little bit of expansion, reheat that gas, expand it some more, reheat that gas. And that would get you really close to the Ericsson cycle. In other words, if you spray water into the compression and do reheats on the expansion, you'll get really, really close to Carnot efficiency. The reason we don't do that is that it takes a lot of machinery to do that, to have, every time you have another expansion stage, there's another machine there. And for the slight improvement in efficiency, it's just not worth it.